Alex Depledge. Hi.
Hello.
You are a very successful entrepreneur. I've heard amazing things said about you. You've won multiple
This is so
awards.
uncomfortable.
Well, we've got to tell the truth here. MBE to your
Yes.
name. Yeah. First ever Entrepreneurship Advisor to the Chancellor.
What a mouthful.
Right.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to dig into money and can't wait to dig into money and entrepreneurship with you, if I can even say it. This is going to be such a fascinating episode. I know lots of people are going to be listening thinking, how on earth do people do stuff like that? Where do you even start? So we're going to learn lots from you. But first of all, we're going to open with fact or fiction. You have got a stat for me and I'm going to decide whether I think it's true or false.
Yeah, so I think you can get this one, but I chose it because I think it's a really interesting segue into like lots of the stuff I think we should cover, which is true or false. Over 60% of Generation Z, I hate Gen Z, not them, the people, but I just hate the phrase Gen Z. Yeah, so over 60% of Generation Z want to be their own boss. True or false?
60%, over 60%.
Over 60%.
I'm going to go with false.
Come on.
I don't think it's. I think it's about 54%.
It's not. It's actually 64%.
64%.
It's the highest in that generation of any other generation, and I think that's not surprising if you think about the world that they've grown up in, and also the fact that they're like unemployable. If you've got any Gen Z like working for you, you know it is a very different type of character, and I think they've grown up with the hustle. The side hustle is like their thing. So. But I also think it's one of the reasons I chose that, Anna, is I think, and we can maybe get into it or not get into it, is actually I think that is a very good thing for us in this country, because I think as AI continues to kind of change the world that we live and work in, you are going to need to be more entrepreneurial, and it's actually going to become like a foundational like skill set, and it's one that we're not equipped actually at the minute to deliver. So thank God they're sort of figuring it out at the minute on their own, so we should probably help them. I think
completely agree. And speaking of growing up, let's start there, because there's so much about your life so far that we can dig into. But I do want to go right back to the beginning. I want to know what life was like for you. If it's anything like my life, we didn't get taught entrepreneurship growing up. I didn't know much about how you'd even become an entrepreneur. So what do I need to know about you to understand how you got here? And tell me a little bit about life growing up.
I feel like this is going to turn into therapy. And
I'm not qualified, so I won't be doing it.
Well, listen, if you make me cry, we might have to pull the whole segment. Why do I say that? I think because like I was bullied at school, and I never fit in anywhere. And I think that, and I didn't fit in at uni either, actually. It wasn't until I went to America that I actually felt like I fit in, and that was like age 20. So actually for the first 20 years of my life, I think I tried to make myself smaller. Does that make sense? Like to try to fit in. And it's interesting, I posted on LinkedIn a letter that I wrote to myself when like 10 years, it was literally on International Women's Day. I posted it because it was 10 years that I'd written in 2016 to myself. It was like called Dear Founder. And everything that I wrote in that letter was so personal to me, because I do think you spend a lot of time when you're growing up in your 20s and even into your 30s trying to minimize the things that make you different. And then in your 30s, you actually realize that your difference is your greatest asset. And I think it took me until I became an entrepreneur, and I just didn't fit in. I didn't fit in like society's systems. Like, like Jules, my co-founder, always says I was the world's worst analyst at Accenture. Like, you were just always destined to run things. And I think becoming an entrepreneur was when I finally kind of found my own skin. So, yeah, I mean, I know I've just zoomed through the whole career then, but I think growing up, I found it very hard, and I didn't naturally make like really deep friendships. So I don't actually have any friends from pre-uni. I don't actually. Oh my God, that's so sad. Oh my God, I've made myself sad.
Tell me then what school was like for you. What was the experience of going to school like every day? If you're saying that you never felt like you fit there, it was only.
It wasn't like I wasn't walking around crying all the time.
Good, I'm glad.
Actually, I actually was fighting a lot. I know it's so Bradford though, isn't it? I mean, I was an absolute scrapper. But that's how I stopped being bullied. And that's what I tell my kids, like, bullies are usually being bullied themselves, and the only thing that they respond to is force or someone being stronger. But your school was, I guess I was good at school. I wasn't naturally, I'm just like a jack of all trades, like
Right.
master of none. And I just was always like a good, solid, like B,
Nice.
A- student. Teachers liked me because I'm quite geeky, still quite geeky. And and so I was really absorbed by school. Like I'm not, my A levels, I learned like 35 quotes for a history exam, like just off the cuff, like. So I just have that ability to kind of like when I'm in, I'm like all in obsessive. So I was quite, school was
I find that
interesting.
encouraging because the whole jack of all trades thing, that often gets banded around as quite a negative thing. But actually, in your case, it's really not. It's enabled you to do.
But if you want to get started as an entrepreneur, you need to be a generalist.
Right,
And then you
right.
need to hire, when you get bigger, you should be hiring specialists. So actually, most entrepreneurs are generalists. You've always got a flavour, right? So you can get your product entrepreneur or you'll get your kind of marketing acquisition entrepreneur. I'm actually sitting here and being like, what was I? Poor Jules, she carried the whole thing. But yeah, I think you have to be a generalist because you've got to do everything.
Yeah, so it sounds like a mixture of being able to do all sorts of different things, but then also, by some things, you're quite likable as well. You say your teachers liked you.
Yeah.
And then also just that resilience from things you went through, perhaps at school and with friends.
100%. Like, honestly, I am so resilient. I'm a resilient little fucker. It's like my favorite phrase because it's not just school that, like, I went to the US like completely on my own. Didn't make any friends for the first like year. It was just the most miserable period of my life. And I keep going. I took I was telling to someone the other day. I took an advanced statistics course, and I'm really bad at maths, like really bad at maths. And I like walked into the first lecture and it was like on, what a variable is. And I'd like no idea. And by the end of it, I was running like multilinear regressions and heteroscedasticity and autocorrelation and all this stuff like Jules and I geek out about now. But like going into it I am not going to fail. Like I will keep pushing. So give me a hard problem and I think that's what, I've just kind of, that got built at school because I don't think that people didn't like me. I just think that I've always had a big mouth. I'm always going to tell you what I think. And I didn't back down from that. And I think people find that quite difficult to deal with. And I don't think I'm easy.
Right. But maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. Like, I think that, I can be a bit affronting, I think, to people.
Right.
And I don't mean to be. It's always with love. But I think some people find that difficult.
I think it's great. I want to know then, just this thing you mentioned about going to America. And that was the first time you felt like a bit more like you fitted in.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about that a little bit? Because I've noticed this difference between the entrepreneurial spirit in American people that I meet and in the UK. What's your take on that, having experienced that yourself?
So I take it in two parts. So the thing that I found liberating in the US is that I wasn't the loudest voice because you'd sit in these like lecture halls and in the UK, it's like nobody goes to the front of a classroom, right?
Yeah.
You come into like an auditorium or whatever, everyone will always go in like the middle row and then fill up to the back. And you have to be like, no, please come sit at the front. In America, you fight to get to the front of the auditorium. And then if there's a question, it's like all hands up. And some people don't even wait to be called on. It's just, you're going to listen to my opinion. And I was like, oh, these are my people. so I just felt a lot more like my sort of like in your face, kind of out there character was just naturally fitting a bit more there. And so there's a huge difference between kind of how Americans think about things in terms of entrepreneurship and how Brits do. Like we are very polite. And I think while that has its place, it doesn't in a world of business, right?
Oh, wow, okay.
And I think that so, if you're with an American founder, even men and women, because we always talk about women and like the lack confidence. Well, American women don't, because I've sat with many American women and they'll tell you exactly like how much revenue they're doing, how quickly they're going to grow, what their plans for world domination are. And then you talk to like someone over here and they're like, yeah, well, I'm doing like 20 million in EBITDA and I think I might be able to grow that by like 10%, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm going to double that next year. So there's just this like, we don't like to overcommit and then like underdeliver, whereas the Americans have got no issue with it. And then if you challenge them and you didn't do what you said you were going to do, like, oh yeah, that thing. And so just that sort of like a bit more like easier and they're just, I think they just have a different risk tolerance to what we do. But I think it's a national cultural thing. I don't think it's how you change that, how you change a culture is been smarter people than me have thought about that, and it's really hard.
Well, I mean, we're going to get onto this later on about some of the work you're doing at the moment to sort of shift things entrepreneurially in the UK. And I think you are looking at this right now, aren't you? Of like what needs to happen, especially with things like risk. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that because I'm a British person and I'm a woman, and it's something I've had to navigate with my own business of I am who I am. Like my personality is what it is. Can I make a business that works with that? And I think the answer is yes. I think because businesses are so flexible, aren't they? And they can be molded around the entrepreneur. And so I do think the answer is yes. So it's nice to hear your take on all of this and thinking, what can we get better at? But also how can we make people feel they can be themselves in entrepreneurship as well?
Yeah.
Which I feel like you are being yourself in entrepreneurship.
I just don't think I can be anyone else. I've tried, like my feedback was like continuously at Accenture, which people will leave Accenture and they badmouth it. Like I am massively grateful for the grounding it gave me. It taught me how to manage up and manage down. It taught me most of my ideas came out of this like fascination with the fact that big companies were trying to change and couldn't, right? And so actually I think that's a really interesting question that we have, and like how can you be more startup in corporate and things like that. But honestly, every single piece of feedback I would get every year would be like, we love who you are, Alex. We don't want you to change, but could you just be like, and it was always like, make myself smaller. And the thing is, I've tried and I can't, and it makes me miserable. And this is just like who I am. And someone said to me the other day, like, do you think you really love yourself?
Wow.
You can't. And I've pondered that question. And actually, I think the answer is absolutely I do, but I'm not always kind to myself, and I hold too high a bar sometimes, and I create space for other people instead of taking it up, which you might find a bit difficult to understand. But I think that's why I just have to do my own thing, because those tendencies of being unkind and having this high bar and not taking up space are way worse for me in a hierarchical structure. So God knows, Tal, how I've survived in the Treasury.
Well,
I'm changing the Treasury instead.
Did you have a moment where you just basically got to that point of I'm not going to play small anymore, or I'm not going to live like that? Was there a conscious decision there, or did it just naturally sort of get washed off you?
I mean, look, I've been so fortunate. Like Hassel was this I was seen as this massive success story, and it happened really quickly. It was 2.5 years from inception to exit. 2 founders, 2 women founders, largest Series A in Europe at the time from Excel, arguably one of the greatest VCs in the UK or in Europe. And suddenly I was catapulted into this I was worth talking to scenario, right, of the millions of founders kicking around. So I think that definitely helped me feel that people wanted to listen to stuff I had to say, or the way that I was doing things differently wasn't necessarily a bad thing. A level of validation. But the single biggest thing I think for me in my life that has really anchored me is Jules.
Right.
Because
for those that don't know,
Julianne Coleman, me Julie, the big JC, she's in the Valley now. She's moved to SF to be with her. I know she's ruining my story. But her husband raised around, and he was commuting backwards and forwards. Anyway, she's gone out there. I'm determined she's going to hate it and she's going to come home. But Jules is the love of my life. She just is. We are so different to each other, and she makes me feel safe.
Right.
And I have that level of security that person, she's never tried to change me. I mean, she does often stage interventions where she's like, right, do we think this is sensible? And will then methodically and rationally talk me through why what I'm proposing is a ridiculous idea. But and I just, female friendship, I just think is this massive thing in my life, not just her, but a lot of friends. And I just feel so complete because I have that. And I think that not enough people talk about how amazing women are to each other.
Yeah. And to have your back like that.
Yeah. And make me feel like I'm enough.
And just to clarify for everyone listening, that's your co-founder. for hassle, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, could you imagine if everyone thinks we're like actually married?
No,
They'd be
I'm
like,
just like,
Simon.
who is this Jules? Who is this person?
So she did both businesses with Jules, and she was the CTO. So she wrote all of the, I have to say, the code, because I would say code, and it just sounds awful. Yeah. Although she told me the other day she's no longer writing code because she just dictates it using Whisper into AI, and away it goes. And she's literally doubled her productivity.
The world is changing so fast,
isn't it?
Okay, I want to come back to Jules in a minute.
Sorry, I'm not allowing you to get through your questions. This always happens.
No, I love it. But it's just, there's just so many things here that are just so fascinating to me because, I work on my own. I don't have, well, my husband has done a lot for my business actually as well. We are directors together on it. But that togetherness that you've just described, I want to come back to that in a minute because that is so cool and also quite rare, I think, to have that kind of level of trust and friendship and still be friends after starting a business together.
We've only had one argument.
Yeah, very, very rare.
And I think women are actually really good at spotting problems, and a particular problem we face, we do more. Sorry, facts. Like, we just do more. We juggle kids and holidays and presents and families and houses, and we're the ones that with a mental load. And so actually we are very good at figuring out what's missing, but we don't capitalize on it because I think it is a funding question, but it's also a childcare question.
Yeah,
it really is. And like, speaking to someone who is now divorced, it's very difficult for men to deal with successful women, in my experience. And we have yet to, and I think the younger generation are getting much better at this, but we really need to very quickly redefine what modern masculinity is and how it should play out, because I think there's a lot of men out there that are very confused and very lonely and very isolated. And it's just no surprise that male suicide rates are at the highest between like 25 and 40.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I think women need a support network, hence the female friendships, but we also need to address this like primary caregiver issue, because I was a primary caregiver and I was raising millions and running businesses, and it nearly killed me. So I just think that explains some of that 2% only going into women, is because that should be bigger, but I don't think it's ever going to be like 50-50, because I think women are still going to raise the children, and actually you have to put the two together to really understand the complexities of what's going wrong and why we don't have any like more big female founders.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's funny enough, when I started doing what I'm now doing, let's just put this in context. The scale of what I do is like nothing compared to
no, you don't diminish. Have you seen my social game? It is awful.
But I remember I had a mentor at the time, Shah Wasmond, and I don't know if you've come across her. She's a fantastic entrepreneur in the UK, and she basically was, one of the things she commented on was, she said that my partner is so supportive and so comfortable and confident and not intimidated by anything I'm doing. We're very much a partnership, and she was telling me how much of an asset that is. And I don't think I'd quite realised it at that point. The fact that he's a secure man who is extremely like backing what I'm doing. I'm backing what he's doing. He's doing his own thing. You know, it's like there's a partnership there. And I hadn't quite seen that through her eyes before, you know, that lens of actually this is something I should be really grateful for, because it's not the same for everybody. And actually that can be a massive challenge for women starting businesses and getting going, because of the home life dynamic can be really difficult. So yeah, that is something that I do think we need to talk more about. And solve some problems there around that. You're at Accenture, doing consulting.
Oh yeah, in
super corporate land, like
not even worse than that, in utilities.
Okay,
so water, electricity, and gas. I mean, God, how exciting am I?
So how long were you there for?
7 years.
And how did you find that? Knowing who you are now, what was that like for you?
Well, like Jules said, I was like the world's worst analyst. No, I mean, like. Clients really liked me.
Right.
So like client side, I did really well. Internally, that was a different story. Again, because like it's hierarchical, and I was always like pushing on the level above, being like, why don't we do it this way? What about this idea? And I never really thought of myself as a creative person, actually, because I think I always felt like creativity was like you could draw, or, you know, you wrote poetry, like stereotypical creativity. But actually, I'm a really creative person,
right?
Particularly like with ideas, and that's what creativity is. It just took me 40 years to sort of realize that. And that's what was going on at Accenture, is I was like this creative person in a hierarchical box. It's like you couldn't get a worse combination. But I learned so much from that experience, like stakeholder management, like how to show up in a room, like how to have different audiences, which is actually massively key in government now. Like, I think that anyone listening to this who sees me in government will probably like, no, she's only got one mode of operating. But actually, I don't. I'm quite cunning, actually, and quite manipulative. And you don't always realise that that's what's happening to you. So, and I think I learned those skills at Accenture. I had some really great male bosses there. Omar Bosch is now the CEO of Pearson. And there's another like really tall Dutch guy called Martin de Weert, who those two stand out in particular as like me taking some of the characteristics of great leaders and kind of like internalizing them for myself. So I feel like Accenture was massively formative, even if I was like round peg, square hole.
Right, but you made it your own and you found a way.
Yeah, I found some people, which you always have to do. You got to find your people.
And then I want to get into your mindset of going from that to then launching your own company and becoming the entrepreneur that you are now. That there'll be so many people listening to this thinking they're in that kind of, they've got their safe job, they've got their 9 to 5, but they've got this kind of niggling feeling of maybe I should be doing something else, maybe I should be starting a business. Talk me through it from I don't have an idea to now we've got this idea and then leaving. How did that even happen?
So Jules, she's there again. So Jules and I lived together in corporate accommodation in Warrington, which
corporate accommodation.
Gotta love it. Warrington was such a riot as well. We had so much fun. But essentially, we had one of those conversations where it's like a bit like, you know, your best mate at uni and you like your guy friend. You're like, oh, well, if we're not married by 30, we'll just get together. Right. And we kind of had this conversation was like, let's see where things go. But if we haven't sort of in 10 years' time figured out a business separately, let's do it together. And actually that became this kind of kernel of an idea that we sort of kept pulling on when we were living there, which was she would bat ideas to me and I'd bat them back and we just kind of go around. And the one that stuck was she wanted to take up piano again and she started looking on Yellow Pages because that was still like yell.com was still a thing. And it was like out-of-date reviews, no pricing, people were not in business and she had to ring them round. She's like, this is just no, we need like a sort of like what about like a music directory? And I was like, nah, that's a shit idea. But then I had wisteria on the front of my house and I needed trimming. And I didn't want like Pimlico plumbers to turn up with their fleet. I just wanted like, you know, Mike the gardener at the bottom of the street. And so this thread became like, why can you buy anything off eBay or Amazon, but you can't find anyone easily in your neighborhood, right? Can I just don't ever do a local services business. Just going to put it
okay.
Out. Nothing localized it's the scaling of it is so hard. Right. Anyway, so it's that sort of that, and we called it Teddle because it's like a bit like Google and like it's got that sort of like play on words. And the way that we ended up leaving was, and the story is so well known, I won't bore you with it, but I was driving one day, she called me up and she's like, are you sitting down? I was like, yeah, I'm driving. She's like, you better pull over. And I was like, Jesus, who's died? And she's like, don't get mad at me, but I've quit my job. And at this point, she's like the youngest ever senior manager at PwC. Like, because she was, what was Jules being like 20 something? I mean, she graduated uni at 19. Like, she's very bright. And I was like, what? And she was like, but don't worry, because I've bought a book. I was like, oh, Jesus, oh, well, then the world is fine. She's like, no, just come round. So anyway, I went round to her house in Clapham and she'd literally spent evenings and weekends learning how to build Twitter from a book so that she couldn't copy and paste like on the internet. And she then messed around with it and created basically what was just a simple booking engine. And this for me was like being like in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And so she'd quit her job and this kind of kept going on. And she just kept saying to me, like, you know, just jump in, the water's not cold.
Wow.
And she kept saying it over and over again. And I was really scared. And when she went to tell her manager at PwC that she was leaving, she said he just sort of wistfully leaned back in his chair and he's like, I had a business idea once. And she's like, you can't be that guy. You can't be that guy. So I went in to tell Omar, and I don't even know if Omar still remembers this. I hope he listens to this and realizes how instrumental he was. I went in and I was like, look, I want to quit, not because I don't love it here, but because of this. And I remember I had to go to his house, and he lives next to Stella McCartney, and Stella McCartney came out of and got in a taxi, and then he was like running late, so he's like, you just got to get in this taxi with me. So I ended up in the back of the black cab, like some James Corden sing-along, and I'm pitching him my idea, and he's like, Alex, I don't want you to leave Accenture. He's like, go down to 1 day a week, choose whatever day you want. So I chose a Friday because the client loved me at the time. They didn't want me to leave. He's like, do it for 6 months. And if at 6 months, you know, you want to come back, your job's there. And if you don't want to come back, then you've got my blessing.
What a guy.
Absolutely. So I got paid 25 grand, was like my pro rata of my salary. I went down to the client every Friday, and the other 4 days a week for 6 months, I just worked on this business with Jules, and we got on an accelerator, and that was like before accelerators were a thing. And that was really helpful at finding out how shit we were. So it's just like, man, Jules, we are not good at this. But that was sort of the journey. And so the thing that I always say to people to like just segue into like kind of like how do you do it is, I know it is scary, but actually if you save up enough money for 6 months, or you go and tell your boss, because we've done it at Resi, like we've given sabbaticals, we've allowed people to go off and develop ideas, particularly in like startup tech world. It's a very big thing. I mean, Revolut's got a whole internal culture where you're meant to be the CEO of your own startup. Like they actively want their employees to be spinning out other businesses. You might surprise yourself what good bosses will do if you've got a good boss. Otherwise, save up 6 months salary and you've got enough. In 6 months, you know whether you've got something there or not. And actually by that point, once you're gone, because the thing is, this is addictive. Once you're in, you're probably not going to go back again.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to that side of things. Once you get doing your own thing, it's like, it's magical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And you also don't know what door's going to open because you started. That's what I found along the way. I love that as a sort of learning point of, you don't have to just stop and jump in. Like Jules maybe did. She has one way of doing it. But you don't have to do that. I think sometimes people think like if it's a good enough idea, I should just quit everything and do it. Otherwise it's going to get away from me. But I think that idea of segueing and going to, and even being open with your boss. I know some people might not be able to do that, and it might not get received very well. But do you think the culture is shifting slightly around that as well with bosses?
If you're good, yeah, absolutely. If you are good, you will do anything to keep hold of good employees. You just will. And so we've always been really open to that. And I think there's more and more people, because actually like I have this, I really believe that hiring is fundamentally broken, because I think the way that we've been doing hiring for a long time has been like, what's your experience? Like, what's your technical skill set? And actually, that's all crap, right? Actually, it's really about what characteristics and behavioral traits does a person have? And are they intellectually curious? Like, do they accept challenge? Can they embrace failure? That's all the stuff I look for. So, a lot of like my top employees have come from really unconventional routes, like Dean, who's our lead AI engineer, I found in Halfords fixing scooters.
This is amazing.
Like Kate Dobson, who runs...
Sorry, how do you start that conversation with Dean and Halfords fixing scooters?
Well, my ex-husband came out and he's like, you need to go and see that guy in there. He's amazing, because he just fixed his scooter. And I was like, really? So I just went in with my business card and was like, if you ever fancy a change of career,
amazing,
talk to me. I've done it in restaurants, like Lou, who runs account management. She served us in a restaurant in Brixton, and she was just so good. And I was like, she's amazing. Gave her my card. She accidentally threw it away and could be found at 2 a.m. in the bins outside the restaurant going through trying to find his card. Kate Dobson found cash in hand in Newcastle, moved her to London. She lived in my house. She's now running content at Resi. She's gone 2 businesses. Rochelle found at university, started doing cleaner recruitment for us at Hassel. He's now running products down in Resi. There's just so many.
I hate to say it, but like, this is a world away from like the random DMs on LinkedIn, isn't it? This is like real life. Find your people, get them in the fold.
Because it's all about people's characteristics and behaviours. It's nothing to do with their skill set. And I can't remember why I went down this rabbit hole with you, because you were asking me a question. But it was like segueing and bosses, and is it changing? Yeah. And if it isn't changing, it really needs to, because I think you're missing out on talent, because actually... your experience and your technical skill set in an age of AI is going to become redundant. So it's much more now about the way I've always hired. And so that's why I think if you're good in that area, any boss would be stupid to turn around and be like, get annoyed because you've got your own idea, or not support it. And I just think some of this stuff can be so like mutually reinforcing and good for you. Like loads of people have come back to Resi because of it, have left, gone off and done stuff, come back again. And I just think that is more the world of work and the future that we're moving to.
Absolutely. So you went from this little idea to making 8 million across 4 countries in under 2 years.
Yeah, that was a ride. And I had a baby in the middle of it.
Yeah, tell me about that. This episode of Money and Us is sponsored by XTB. I think a lot of people sit on the edge of investing for quite a while. Maybe you've experienced this yourself. You know you probably should be doing something more with your money, but you're worried about getting it wrong. You feel like you need to understand everything before you start, so you wait. But one of the things I've learned over the years is that confidence doesn't usually come before action. It comes from taking small steps, learning as you go, and building understanding over time. And investing can be just like that too. It's not about trying to get rich quickly or making perfect decisions. It's about allowing your money to grow over the long term and developing your confidence along the way. That's where XTB can help. XTB offers access to a range of investment options alongside educational resources and tools designed to help you learn and make informed decisions as you go. If investing is something you've been meaning to explore but haven't quite known where to start, XTB could be a useful place to begin. To find out more, just click the link for XTB below this video. And remember, your capital is at risk when investing, and it's important to understand what you're investing in. Investment values can rise or fall. Always do your research.
That was pretty epic. Well, so I decided I wasn't going to have a baby when I raised this massive round because I was like, probably don't really have time for this anymore. And it'd been 2 years and I couldn't get pregnant. And so I just pulled up the drawbridge and thought nothing of it, and raised this money in the February. And then at the Easter, we went to Egypt, random, put my phone in the safe in the hotel, which I think is the last time I ever, someone else asked me, like, have you ever like done without your phone for like 3 days? And this is the last time, like 11 years ago. Look what happened. I'm not doing that again. I put it in the safe and I think we had sex once, came back, I was pregnant. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do? And this was like, I think I found out in like the May or the June. And June we opened Ireland. Yeah, August. July we opened France. August we opened Berlin. And I was like, so I just didn't tell anybody. And then like 11 o'clock at night in October, what would I have been then? Like 6 months pregnant. I'm like furiously writing like Zendesk tickets because we had just all these customer tickets in the dark for some reason. And Jules sort of comes sauntering in and sits down. And she's like, hey. And I just burst into tears. Oh, gosh. And she's like, oh my God, what's wrong? I was like, I'm pregnant. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like, it's not fucking amazing. And I think I'd just been in complete denial. I hadn't told anyone. I'd obviously told Dave, but I hadn't told anyone else. And then I had to like try and unpack that with the investors. And that went awfully wrong, like really, really wrong. And then, yeah, just like I had a baby. And then 2 weeks later, I was back at work. I was on a plane to Munich to raise a Series B.
What was
watching Harper sleep as an infant on my like monitor on my phone.
And I suppose like even with the timings of it, as an entrepreneur, you can't control too much the speed of things. If something starts taking off, there's some things you can do, but you were on a trajectory at that point that you couldn't really just jump off and stop for a bit.
No.
So what was going through your head at that time?
I can't have this baby. Can I send it back? Just like
go back to Egypt.
Can we just press pause
redo the holiday
on this entire thing, please? I mean, like the bad blood with the investors was like really hard. I think that definitely put pressure on me to come back to work before I was ready.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that I went to Munich to raise a round of money when she was like 3 weeks old, I feel quite ashamed of myself for not pushing back on that. And then, you know what? I actually carried an awful lot of, you are like hitting the raw moments here. I have to say that, Anna, because like, and I don't know if I can get this out without crying, but like I had to go to therapy and have quite intense therapy when Harper was about 4 years old because I felt like I hadn't bonded with her.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's all right. So I said I wasn't going to do that with the second, and I didn't. I had like 3-4 months off with that one. And then when I like when you unpack all of that, you realize like I wasn't a shit mum. I was just put into this impossible position.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know, for like female founders, there is no legislation between you and your investor. It's not like you're an employee and you've got like some grievance. Like you can't do any of that. It was just like they told Jules that she wasn't allowed to get pregnant for 12 months.
Was that a thing?
Well, I mean, that's what they did. That's what they did. And I was just like, you just wouldn't be able to do that in a normal,
No.
dynamic, but you can.
I don't think I've ever made that comparison before between the investor situation and an employee. And that is mega, isn't it? Because if we're wanting women to become entrepreneurs and to go for things and not play small, but we can't control all these things that happen in our lives. You can't control when you're pregnant always. It's not something you can just switch on and off.
But also,
for many women.
I think the other thing for me as well is that, we don't see the economic benefit of children, right? Like, we need people to power an economy, and those people come out of women. And it's like, you are doing a societal good by having children and raising good, industrious, well-meaning citizens. And that whole thing, we are made to feel like we're an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's really hard. And so that's why I'm not surprised we don't have more female founders, because it's fucking hard. It is really hard. I mean, I'm on my own now, raising 2 children, doing 4 jobs, and that is that's a hard juggle. That's a really hard juggle, whether you're, a solo entrepreneur or even just a female employee trying to it's just really tough. And I don't think there's a real proper understanding of, and I'd love to do, how they always come up with if women's domestic work was included in the GDP and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love someone to go away and research the economic benefit for women having children and the GDP contribution, because I think if we started to frame it in economic terms, men actually might be a bit more forgiving.
And it's a bit sad that we have to do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit sad that we can't just be well, children are obviously wonderful and a blessing and we need children, just it's obvious. It shouldn't have to be a numbers thing, but it is sad that we are at that point. And I feel that too. I've got 3 kids and
You've got 3 kids?
I've got 3 kids, yeah.
Woof.
And
that's like crowd control.
And they're all girls. Yeah.
Oh, you're like I'm one of 3 girls, and we are so close, me and my sisters.
I keep hearing this from people with 3 girls, and I'm just I mean, I see it with them. They're little legends. But
How old are they?
13, 12 and 10.
Well, you do not look old enough to have a 13-year-old.
I love you forever, thank you.
And they're all close as well.
They are.
Were they all planned?
Yeah, they were.
Bang, bang, bang.
But we did it slightly differently in that we knew I married young, but my husband and I were very aligned when we wanted kids young. I always saw myself having kids.
I feel like I need to meet this guy. He sounds like an absolute rock star.
You would get on so well.
Really?
Oh my gosh, I've just seen it. Oh, you've got to have dinner. I'll take you out for dinner.
Let's do it.
Okay, happy days. Because the thing is, we did it a bit. Nowadays, people would be like, "Gosh, that's crazy." Having kids young, I wasn't looking to get a career off the bat. I just did what I needed to do, and my partner had a good job, and it was actually after having kids that I was like, I don't want to go back to a 9 to 5. I can't do this. Similar pull of I'm a mum that has changed me. There are certain non-negotiables now in my life that weren't there before, and society isn't set up for that. And it was, so the reason I'm doing this now is that was my journey of figuring that out.
And I see so many women that think, well, on maternity leave, I'm going to figure all this out.
No.
And actually that is the worst time to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
If you've got a burning itch that work doesn't quite work for you, or you've got this idea, or you think you've got something more in you, I just actively encourage you, don't write a business plan, just start doing something, anything small towards it. And it will find it, if it's meant to be, the kind of path will naturally evolve. It will open up, because everyone always goes oh, how do you become an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurs are not, you don't become one, you just are one, and everybody's journey is different, and there isn't a blueprint for it. You just have to start. It's like taking out a blank piece of paper and becoming a writer. You just have to start writing. You can't prepare for it.
Right.
You just have to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I just think it's not as scary as everyone thinks it is once you just start.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about this because I did poll my community online recently and asked, does anyone have a business? Would you like to start one? I think over 50%, just on a quick poll, were like, yeah, I'd love to have a business.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that you're saying that kind of gap between I want to do it, don't know how to do it, just start doing something.
Yeah.
And someone said to me at the start, they said, it's your third idea that will be the one that takes it. That wasn't your case. You're just so blessed. It was your first. For me, that was exactly true. It was one idea, idea number 2. And then this is now what I found myself doing. And it was sort of accidental. And I think but I don't regret any of those things.
No,
and I think
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things I'm really considering at the minute in the Treasury, right? Because obviously we have to do lots on like education and talent, and we have to do lots on regulation and procurement and access to funding and things like that. But there is actually a problem with dynamism in the UK economy. Like our start and failure rate of businesses is much lower than like somewhere like the US. And we often keep things going well beyond their sell by day. And actually, like, is there something we're doing that's encouraging that? That's what I'm kind of looking at. And so I absolutely agree with that, what you just said there, which is like, just start, do anything, try anything. And then, if it doesn't work, quickly walk away from it and try another thing. Because what you're doing there is you're accruing knowledge. And, that's why by the time you've hit your third business, like, you're just like off because you've seen it before, you've experienced it before, you've gone through the different stages. Like, and if I did another business, which I am not categorically doing again, she's like, I'd probably be amazing at it. It might actually work. I'm like a home run, but, and it's because you can't teach entrepreneurship. You can't. It always makes me laugh when I was like, "Oh, you should do entrepreneurship at school." No, no, you shouldn't. But what you should do is foster creative thinking, curiosity, critical thinking, like all of the stuff that's really important in being an entrepreneur. We need to do in school, but entrepreneurship can't be taught. You just have to learn it. You learn by doing. It's the best vocational trade ever.
Yeah.
So I think the more times you fail, the more you learn, because ultimately, like, there's so much more learning in failure than there is success. Yeah. Which probably means I'm pretty shit then, really, doesn't it?
I think you've done all right. Before we get on to your work in the Treasury, I wanted to ask you just really quickly about, you did exit your business, which is something a lot of people, not everyone aspires to do. It's quite hard to do.
Yeah.
But you did it to the tune of 32 million. Incredible achievement.
I'm just sitting here being like, yeah, but it wasn't 100 million. Sorry.
Is that really the first thought that goes through
that's
your head?
how me and Jules were disappointed. I can't believe I just said that. We're going to have to edit that out because I sound like such a twat saying that. But...
No, because tell me about that, because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't understand. And to me, I'm looking at the number going, flipping, what? How did that even happen? So what's going through your head?
I mean, look, like, we didn't engineer that exit. It was like, it was just, and this is the thing about exits, is a lot of the time you catch a trend, it's the right time, the stars align, and that's what happened, I guess, for us in that. But I think that's why we ended up starting another business again, which is like a difficult second album, is that we just didn't feel like we were done. Within 2.5 years, we had so much more, like, there was so much more we could have done with that company. And we didn't really get on with the people who bought us in the end, and we ended up leaving. And so Resi was very much like the kind of like stepchild of hassle, where we needed to kind of do something again. And oh my God, what a difficult child Resi's been, So I think that when I say, oh no, it wasn't 100 million, it's like, I'm surrounded, especially in this job, just surrounded by these insane founders that are building, that are going from like 10 million ARR to 100 million ARR in like 6 months. And I'm just like,
it's me and my little, isn't it?
I'm like, I've got a local corner shop in comparison. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's again, like, I go back to like, do I love myself? Yeah, I do love myself, but I constantly raise the bar all the time. And I think the other thing that is really true of me is I have huge imposter syndrome in pretty much every area of my life.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this whole confident facade is exactly that. It's a facade.
I would not have known at all that you'd be feeling like that at all.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't come across. And is that something that's always been there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just mask very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a female thing more than, do you think women do that a lot, or do you think?
I think it's more prevalent in women, yeah.
Yeah. And how do you marry that with all your achievements of like the feeling of
my therapist would have a field day with this question. I haven't internalized it.
Right.
I'm still trying to internalize that because objectively, when you write it all down on paper, I would admit that looks like success, but I don't feel like I'm successful.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would success look like in your brain?
That is such a good question. Oh, I don't know.
Is there a point?
And this comes back to the validation point, right? I clearly seek validation. This is getting quite deep now, sorry. obviously I seek validation and I need to figure out how that I can validate myself. And that's what I'm trying to work on. So that's probably success.
Yeah.
When I don't need the validation anymore.
Right. And then you can see it as it is and be like, I've done it.
Yeah.
What's that Mariah Carey quote? The Mariah Carey quote that I keep coming back to. She said last year when Katy Perry went to space. And she said someone told her that it happened because she hadn't even seen, because she's not watching this stuff. Mariah Carey was like, they said, are you going to go to space as well? Mariah Carey just turned around and went, I think I've done enough. And I was like,
yes.
That's the attitude.
I think she did enough when she got like the Christmas #1 every Christmas.
Mariah Carey. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting point there about comparison, and the pond you're in, the people you're around, you're always looking at the next thing, aren't you? And a lot of people will relate to that feeling of even though you've done amazing things, somebody else would look on and be like, wow, that's incredible. It's hard. I find that really hard too, just to actually see the achievements and sit in them and actually be like, okay, I'm going to celebrate that win, rather than what's the next thing all the time. But I appreciate your honesty, because I think it's easier to look at someone like you and just be like, wow, they've got it all sussed and they've figured it all out. But it's nice.
My mum said to me when I was a kid, like a teenager, she just said, Alex, you've got to realise that everybody's pretending.
So true.
And it's so true. Like everyone is pretending. And the minute that you kind of internalise that, you're just like, oh yeah, you know, this great person, this really smart person, you think, oh, you know, you don't match up to them. And then you're just like, actually, most people are just winging it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're literally winging it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to something, a major shift that has happened not too long ago in your life, which is that you got asked to be the first ever Entrepreneurship Advisor to the Chancellor, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did that call go? Like, what happened? How did we get here?
Oh man. So I met Rachel when she was Shadow Chancellor, and she held this like lunch in the Lord Mayor's mansion in Bank. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's really opulent and it's just beautiful. And I went, sorry, Rachel, I went for that. I went for the lunch.
For the vibes.
Yeah. And it was this really like long table. There's about 40 people around it. There's 2 women there, me and Debbie Wasco, and then Rachel. And I just started wanging on about pensions. Like, don't ask me why. I've like been obsessed about pensions since like 2014. Consolidating them, using them better, etc., which is I realised quite a dorky thing to kind of be interested in. And I started saying this, and I think Rachel just clocked like Northern. At the time, I was like early, like 39 or something, so like relatively young. I'm still young. I'm gonna go with it. So yeah, relatively young, Northern, talking about pensions, female, and she was just probably like, yeah, that's quite interesting. So a couple of months after that, she got in touch and was like, I want to do this report on scale-ups with like Lord Jim O'Neill, and convene this really small group of like 4 of us and Rachel and Neil Almond-Smith, who's now like Chief Spad. And he wrote the paper, and it was all about like, yeah, how do we grow and scale more companies? And just through that process, like I really like the way that Rachel is, she's not afraid to take unpopular decisions and then like stand behind them. And I think that's actually quite rare in politicians now. She's like quite statesmanly like in that approach. She listens. That is rare. That is so rare in a politician, and takes on board that feedback. Like she really does. Even if she doesn't like it, she still listens to you. She's really thoughtful. Like she remembers like really bizarre details about people, like your birthday or your husband's birthday. And you're just like, how does anyone that busy ever remember it? And she's got this massively big, infectious laugh. Like I wish people could see the Rachel that I see, which is just a really good human in a really difficult spot, doing the best that she can, which isn't that what most of us are doing?
Right.
And so, throughout this journey with her, like we would stay in touch and we'd see each other, and she'd invite me to things, and then obviously like she got like elected, and everyone was like, oh my God, Rachel's definitely going to call on you. 6 months goes by, nothing.
You sitting by the phone like watching it.
Anyway, she then she messaged me. Oh, so Katie, her chief of staff, messaged me. She was like, oh, do you want to, can you help us organise this breakfast for female founders at number 11? And I was like, yeah. And just before then, I'd been keeping my powder dry, right? And I thought, what am I keeping it dry for? I've got literally nothing to, she's not asking me to do anything, and you want to do something, so just like lay it out there. So I went in, I said to Katie, can I come in early? So I went in at 7 a.m. before this breakfast. And I just said to Rachel, these are all the things I think you're doing right. These are all the things I think you're doing wrong. I think I can help you. And so the original incarnation, and she wasn't very happy at that point because I was quite brutal. And then she's like, well, what about if we pull this thing together? And I was like, oh, I don't really want to write another paper. And it sort of died. And then literally about 3 months later, when I thought, I'd sort of, that was it. Katie asked me to go for a drink, and then she just slid this piece of paper over, and it was a job offer.
This is like such a bougie move. It's like sliding the paper
in a cocktail bar.
Oh, come on!
Underneath the National Gallery.
It's like the best movie.
Like speakeasy. I was like, yeah. So I was sitting there with my pisco sour.
10 out of 10.
And basically, what I loved about this job offer was it was a job offer, but without saying what I was going to work on. And I was like, well, what do you want me to work on? They were like, well, what do you want to work on?
Right.
And I was like, amazing. So I went and scoped out what I thought were the 3 levers we could pull for entrepreneurs, submitted that to Rachel and Katie, and they were like, yeah, we agree. And so I've just got in there in June, flailed around for like 3 months. Like everybody ignored me until I had a major strop one day, and I was like, nobody's listening to me. And that sort of changed everything. And then the budget went well for my bit of the world, and I wrote this entrepreneurial prospectus that went down really well, because what I was trying to get the Treasury to do is see people as end consumers, a bit like you do as an entrepreneur. Like stop like focusing on like narrow like issues like this tax or this policy, but actually start looking at this community and all of the things that we're doing and bringing it together. And that went down really well. And because it went down well with the community, I thought, well, I've actually got some momentum here, which, you know what it's like when you've got momentum in business, like you don't step away from it. You've got to lean into it. So Rachel had already asked me to stay. And it was really funny. Like I had this moment where I took her, she loves rosé. So I took her a bottle of Whispering Angel and a card, like a thank you card. And I went to try and tell her, and I just burst into tears.
Oh, this is brilliant.
Just like, and she's not a hugger, and we ended up having this big hug, and I could see all like the private secretaries be like, oh, there's a long hug going on. But what I was trying to say to her is like, in the middle of one of my shittest years of my life, because 2025 was bad. Like I got divorced, we had to tell the kids, moved out. Resi was like needed money. I had to like fundraise in shit conditions. Like, I mean, what else happened? Like, Evan got diagnosed with ADHD, and I was going through all of those motions. Harper was getting bullied at school. Like, I just had this list, this endless list of stuff that just never seemed to like get better. It just got worse. And in the middle of all of that, this job saved me.
Right. And it was a big fat yes in the middle of.
So then she said, will you stay on? And I was like, what do you want me to do? And she's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, yes, here we go again. So I picked another 3 areas, and that's what I'm doing now.
I just want to say, like, hearing your story from the start, something just to pull out here is this sort of fearlessness to kind of just say the thing that needs to be said. And I think if anything in the world right now,
don't tell the comms Treasury team that.
Yeah, but it came, like you're saying, at first it was a bit awkward perhaps, but it was listened to, and then it became this thing, and it's now this role that you have. But you had the guts to sort of say, look, I really think we could be doing some stuff here. And you're not coming from a place of like, I don't know what I'm talking about. You actually do know what you're talking about. And you put it on the table and was like, I feel like we should do this. And it's now being taken on board. And I feel like we're in a time right now where I think people feel a little bit helpless. I feel a little bit like there's so much going on. Does my voice even, can I even do anything?
Yeah.
Can I even make a difference? What would you, I mean, no, I know some things are personality, but what would you say to someone who's feeling a little bit like that, a bit of out of sorts with what's happening and going on in the world? In terms of the influence
I guess
we have.
So I think I'm quite stoic in like my approach to things. So what I often do is say like, what's the worst that can happen? Well, my business dies. It dies. Yeah, it's really sad, but that's life. And I think we go through life at the minute with these completely unrealistic expectations that we're all meant to be fucking happy and ladies of leisure like all the time. Like, when has that ever been true? Like, the whole story of humankind is one of suffering, right? So this notion that things can always be worse. So I'd enjoy what you've got now. And like, if you're feeling hopeless, no one is going to come and turn that around for you apart from yourself. So there's I tell this story, and it's quite an embarrassing story actually, because I think it makes me sound like a bit of an arrogant twat, and I'm sorry for swearing on your podcast. You're gonna have to beep it out. No, I think you should keep it in. It's cool. It's Bradford. So a few years ago, when I was in my most depressive state and resi was really bad, we'd had the stop-start of the economy, COVID, furlough, like mass inflation, all that, Liz Truss, all that stuff. And I remember I had this award ceremony at Waterloo in one of the fancy hotels. I was up for Entrepreneur of the Year or something, and the people who were also shortlisted were all women that had come up behind me that I'd helped when they were kind of younger. And so weird logic in your head, it's like, oh, I should win this, right? I've been around longer, I've done more, right? And I didn't win. And I remember going to the train station and sitting on the train from Waterloo back to Woking, because I live near there. And I had a proper chat with myself. I was like, why are you so arrogant?
Wow.
Why did you think that? What is it about? And I realized in that moment, I was acting like I was entitled to that award, entitled to business success, entitled to be successful, entitled to be happy because you're Alex Depledge. I was like, fuck you. I do not like this version of myself at all. And I literally binned her off.
Wow.
And I got myself a performance coach. I went back to therapy. I was like, no, it's a mindset shift. If I want a happy life, if I want a rewarding life, if I want to be successful, it comes from me. It comes from me, my attitude, my work, my approach to everything. And so I think if there are people out there that are thinking everything is hopeless and why is the world being so profoundly unfair to me, I think you probably need to check yourself and have a trained conversation like I did, because the world owes you nothing. You have to fight for it all. And yeah, I think that's probably not a message many people want to hear, but that is the reality of the situation. So I think you just have to ask yourself, what's the worst that's going to happen? Rachel could have never given me a job. She could have never spoken to me again. She could have been like, who is this girl?
Yeah.
But actually, by taking a chance, by saying the thing that everyone was thinking that no one wanted to say, good things came of it. So I think you put those two things together and you've probably got my approach to life.
Yeah, I can see it.
You're like, oh, it's going to go down really well for my listeners.
No, I love it. I've just got a couple more things I wanted to touch on before we end. One of them is I'd love to know, with your new role with the Chancellor, what is it you're shifting? What if you could shift one thing? I want to hear a bit about what you're doing behind the scenes, but also if you could say one thing that you'd want to shift in entrepreneurship in the UK, what would that one thing be? But also, what are you doing behind the scenes right now?
Okay, start with the last one then. So I've said this before, but I wanted to tell UK entrepreneurs that they matter, because over the past 15 years, we've just gradually eroded a lot of the incentives and a lot of the kind of support, I would guess, for that sector of the economy. And I think it's because we don't really understand it. So I wanted to kind of do some stuff that could change sentiment. So that for me was extending the EMI option scheme, changing the limits so that we can give tax advantageous share options to our employees, because I think it's really important that employees feel like they're part of some meaningful journey, and then they can benefit in the upside. And that was a world-leading scheme when it was first introduced under Gordon Brown, and we haven't touched it since then. And actually, it cost a lot of money. It cost hundreds of millions for us to change that, but Rachel was bang up for it. So I'm like, yes, we got that through. I extended EIS and VCT limits, which is if you're raising money, you can do it and get tax relief, so 30% income tax, etc. back. So that really helps with early stage funding. And then I spent a long time working with the BBB, which is a British business bank, which does loans for startups and scale ups, but also puts money, funds to invest into venture capital. And we really, really lack scale up capital. So you can get to 10 million of revenue, but then when you need that kind of next boost to get to 100 million, that's the sort of valley of death that we all go to die in, or we move to the US. And we right now underwrite US R&D. And I think that's bad, right? And I want more more businesses to be able to stay here and have a domestic option, which is where the pension stuff comes in. So I've done a lot on pensions. Oh, back to pensions.
Who knew?
So that's kind of what I did. And the prospectus was my love letter, like from the Chancellor to the community to say, we care, we care about you, and we know you're the growth story for the UK. Because if we're talking about growing the economic pie, it's going to come from dynamic future companies, right? It's not going to necessarily come from some of the older, more traditional companies. Doesn't mean that they're not important.
Right.
See, got that in. Keep getting in trouble for like cherry picking, but I genuinely think that like we've got some insanely a rich seam of talent in the UK that we can commercialise and take advantage of, and then, you know, pay more tax, better public services, everybody wins. So when I said I was going to stay on, the one thing I'd heard, two things consistently when I was out doing my roundtables around the UK and just from the community, which was, one, we don't want equity funding necessarily. We want contracts. Contracts is procurement. So what can I do to open up private procurement and public procurement? Because the government spends billions procuring, and it does mostly from American primes. And that's wrong to me. Like, if we should be buying British technology and we should be buying British products, right? We need to improve our national resilience. So I'm doing a big project on that, and it's hard. Like, that is so hard. But, you know, I feel like that's where, like, it's like procurement's like your career graveyard, and like I'm in it. So let's see where we go. And then the second thing was around celebrating entrepreneurship. So there's two strands to that. Like, one, it's quite back officey, but one of the things we're doing with the Department of Business and Trade is building like a live database so we can see who our most dynamic, innovative, high growth companies are, and we can have a product offering like you take money from the British Business Bank and we give you some visas and fast track your visas, or we get you on a procurement framework, or we give you some compute if you're an AI company. So like, how do we make it attractive to take investment and stay in the UK? And who are our companies? Because I liken the government right now to like driving at night without any headlights on. Like, it knows who its FTSE 100 is, but it's got like no idea about the rest of it. And then the other thing is, how do we celebrate entrepreneurs? And I've got something quite big in the works that I can't talk about, so we're just gonna like leave it there.
Beautiful. I want to we've run out of time, but I just want to finish with this one question very quickly. Alex Depledge, what does wealth mean to you?
Contentment.
It's good.
Is it?
Yeah. It's good.
Let's leave it. Well, my mum always said that like you shouldn't strive to be happy, you should just strive to be content.
Wow.
I think that's true.
It's beautiful.
She's been mentioned twice. Judy Depledge, you've got to be happy.
We love you, Judy. Shout out to Judy. Thank you so much.
Mate, that's going to make her day.
Send her that clip.
I will.
Thank you so much for coming on. You are remarkable. And I feel just such a sense of kindred spirit with you as well in terms of...
We should be friends.
I mean, I'm up for it. So could be one way though, Alex.
What, you mean I'm your friend and you're not mine?
No, I think I'm more invested, perhaps. Anyway, it's been an absolute treat to talk to you, and I hope we can do this again sometime soon. But all the best in everything you're doing, and I am obviously a fan of entrepreneurship in the UK, so thank you for all the things you're doing.
Thanks for having me, Anna. Happy to be here. And it's been a really fun conversation.
Great.
Thanks.
Listening to this podcast, you'll notice that we cover a lot of different areas when it comes to money. But one thing I hear all the time is, how do I actually pull this together and apply it to my own finances? And that's why I wrote Money Mentor. This book takes all of these key ideas from mindset to managing your money to growing it, and showing you how to apply them step by step in your real life, month to month. It's not about being perfect with money. It's about having a clear plan and knowing what to do next. Inside the book, you'll also get access to practical tools, including my own budgeting framework and additional resources to help you actually implement what you're learning. Because knowing what to do is one thing, but putting it into action is where everything starts to change. I've had so many messages from people saying that it has helped them to finally feel clear and more in control of their money. So if you're ready to feel more in control of your finances and build a system that actually works for you, you can access Money Mentor using the link below this episode.